The buttery aroma of popcorn still clung to the air in the lobby as Emily Carter pushed open the heavy glass doors of the Grand Majestic Theater in Los Angeles, the 4-year-old twins, Ethan and Owen, bouncing excitedly by her side, their giggles echoing in the foyer as they recounted the adventures of the movie they had just seen. "Mom, did you see when the dragon—" Ethan began, his brown eyes shining with excitement. "And then it—" Owen chimed in, completing his brother's sentence in the perfect sync that always made Emily smile. It was then that the bustling crowd in the theater lobby grew louder, a murmur spreading that prompted Emily to instinctively tighten her hold on the boy's hands. Ryan Miller, the famous young billionaire known for his philanthropic work, was crossing the room, surrounded by a few associates. At 30 years old, he exuded an effortless confidence that drew everyone's attention. "This way, Mr. Miller," one of the associates said, indicating a VIP room, probably for a private event. The twins stopped abruptly, their small heads turning in unison to watch the man walk by. Emily was used to these sudden halts. Ethan and Owen shared not only identical features, but also an insatiable curiosity about the world. "Look, Mom," Ethan exclaimed, tugging on the hem of her beige coat. "He looks like us," Paul added, his face lighting up with a grin that showed the gap where he'd lost a baby tooth. Emily followed her son's gaze, and her heart skipped a beat. Ryan Miller stood just a few feet away, talking to his associates. But it wasn't his imposing presence or natural charisma that made her feel as if the floor had fallen away beneath her. It was his eyes, those same deep brown eyes that looked back at her every morning, doubled whenever she woke her boys. The same face shape, the same slightly crooked smile Ethan wore whenever he was plotting some mischief. Even the way Ryan's dark hair fell rebelliously over his forehead was an exact replica of the daily challenge she faced trying to comb the twins' hair. For a fleeting moment, Miller glanced their way, his eyes sweeping over the twins without any particular recognition, offering only the polite smile he likely gave all admirers. But that split second was enough for Emily to see, with devastating clarity, the striking resemblance between him and her sons. "Can we talk to him, Mom?" Owen asked, already taking a step forward. Emily felt her throat go dry. Her hands, normally so steady when holding her boys, trembled slightly now. "Not today, sweetheart," she managed to say, her voice sounding strange even to her own ears. "He looks busy, and you both still need a bath before dinner." The boys protested, their complaints distant and muffled in Emily's mind as she ushered them quickly out of the theater, letting her motherly autopilot take over while her thoughts spun in a whirlwind of possibilities she didn't dare fully form. On the drive home through the sluggish LA traffic, as the twins played a game of counting red cars until they arrived, Emily watched their reflection in the window's dark glass. How had she not noticed before? The resemblance was so obvious, so overwhelming that ignoring it now seemed impossible. "Mom, are you sad?" Ethan's voice pulled her back to reality. His eyes, those eyes, looked at her with concern. "No, my love," Emily forced a smile, pulling them both close. "I'm just thinking about the delicious dinner we're going to make." In her apartment in Lincoln Square, the walls were decorated with colorful drawings and photos of happy moments that suddenly seemed to be hiding a secret she never knew existed. As she prepared dinner with the boys helping in the chaotic way only 4-year-olds can, Emily couldn't stop thinking about that encounter in the theater. During the boys' bath, each routine gesture brought fresh realizations. The way Ethan furrowed his brow when shampoo threatened to get in his eyes was identical to the expression she'd just seen on Miller, and the way Owen bit his lower lip while focusing on his rubber duck matched the mannerism she had just witnessed in the Billionaire. After putting the twins to bed, 2 stories, 3 glasses of water, and countless goodnight kisses later, Emily finally allowed herself to collapse on the sofa, her hands shaking as she typed Ryan Miller's name into her tablet. Image after image confirmed what her heart already knew. These weren't just superficial similarities. It was as if someone had taken Ryan Miller's DNA and duplicated it in her sons. Her sons? The thought made her stomach churn. The sound of tiny footsteps made her open her eyes. Owen was standing in the doorway, hugging his teddy bear tightly against his chest. "Mommy, why did that man in the theater look so much like us?" he asked, still half asleep. Emily felt her heart constrict. "Sometimes people look alike, honey. It's just a coincidence," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady as she opened her arms to comfort him. As she rocked Owen back to sleep, silent tears slipped down her cheeks. What would this discovery mean for her family, for her boys, for the precious bond they had built? In the twins' bedroom, watching them breathe peacefully in their sleep, Emily made a silent promise. No matter what this discovery might bring, she would protect her children's happiness with all her strength. But as she gently closed their door, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just been irrevocably changed. On her phone, a notification blinked. Ryan Miller would be on the next cover of Forbes, highlighting his latest social project for orphaned children. Children? Emily stared at the screen, feeling the weight of destiny in her hands. That casual encounter on a Sunday afternoon had planted a seed of truth she knew she couldn't ignore forever. Emily stayed awake long after the clock struck 2 a.m, the unexpected meeting with Ryan Miller at the theater having unleashed an avalanche of memories she couldn't contain. Sitting in her favorite armchair with a cup of chamomile tea gone cold in her hands, she let herself sink into the past. 4 years earlier, the Willow Creek Adoption Center had been her second home. Having worked as a social worker for over a decade, Emily had witnessed hundreds of stories, some with happy endings, others not so much. She never imagined that on one rainy October morning her own story would begin to be written. "You need more rest, Emily," Ruth Johnson had said that morning, noticing the dark circles under her younger colleague's eyes. Ruth, in her 60s with elegantly pinned gray hair, was more than a mentor. She was the mother Emily had lost too soon. The steaming coffee Ruth had just poured remained untouched when urgent knocks echoed down the silent hallway of Willow Creek. Emily remembered exchanging a worried glance with Ruth before standing up. It wasn't unusual for them to receive abandoned babies, but something about those knocks felt different. When she opened the door, she found a young woman drenched from the rain, her green eyes framed by dark strands escaping a soaked hood, revealing a mixture of desperation and determination. In her arms was a wicker basket covered by a pale blue blanket. "Please," the young woman's voice trembled. "They need to stay together. They're twins. They can't be separated." Before Emily could react, the basket was thrust into her arms. The young woman hesitated for a moment Emily would replay in her mind countless times over the years. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something more, but only a single tear fell down her cheek before she disappeared into the downpour. Inside the basket, 2 babies slept soundly, their tiny fingers intertwined, as though even in sleep they needed to reassure each other of their shared presence. Emily felt something break and rebuild inside her at that very instant. "My God," Ruth whispered, appearing at her side. "They're perfect." Standard procedures followed: medical exams, police reports, a search for any information. The babies were healthy, well-fed, about 3 months old. In the basket, besides the blue blanket, there was only a silver medallion with a partially erased inscription and a hastily written note. "Ethan and Owen, please keep them together." "She must have had her reasons," Ruth remarked as they organized the initial paperwork. "Did you see how she looked at them before leaving? That wasn't a careless abandonment, Emily." In the days that followed, Emily found herself increasingly drawn to the twins. There was something magnetic about them, something beyond their identical cuteness or emerging smiles. Amid feedings and diaper changes, between reports and fruitless attempts to track down the biological mother, Emily felt her heart transforming. "You should adopt them," Ruth said one evening after watching Emily rock the babies for hours. It wasn't a casual suggestion, it was a statement. Ruth, how could I? I'm single. I work full-time. I barely have time to take care of myself, Emily protested, but her voice betrayed a trembling note of hope. And yet, look at you, Ruth smiled, nodding toward the babies sleeping peacefully in her arms. You're already their mother, Emily. You just need to make it official. The adoption process was an emotional roller coaster. As a social worker, Emily knew every step, every form, every interview. But being on the other side was completely different. Ruth was her pillar of support, using her decades of influence in the system to streamline the process whenever possible. You have financial stability, experience with children, a solid support network, Ruth would argue in council meetings, and most importantly, you have love to give. As she relived these memories, Emily picked up her tablet again. Ryan Miller's face stared back at her in dozens of different photos. It was surreal how each image now revealed a new similarity to her boys. She began reading about his past, and every detail seemed like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Ryan Miller had been abandoned at the age of 5 under mysterious circumstances, adopted by the Miller family, heirs of a once-declining pharmaceutical empire. The gifted boy soon proved his worth. By 18, he was already developing patents that would revolutionize the market. By 25, he had turned the family business into a global powerhouse. Project Roots, Emily read aloud. Ryan's initiative to renovate orphanages and modernize the adoption system was his trademark. In interviews, he always cited his own experience as motivation. Every child deserves a chance to rewrite their story. One article in particular caught her attention. 5 years ago, Ryan had been embroiled in a public dispute with his adoptive father, Richard Miller, over the direction of the company. While Richard wanted to focus solely on profits, Ryan insisted on investing in social projects. "Money isn't everything, Dad," Ryan was quoted as saying at a shareholders' meeting. "Some debts can't be paid in dollars." Emily paused her reading when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Owen appeared in the doorway, clutching his blue blanket, the same one that had brought him to Willow Creek 4 years before. "I can't sleep, Mom," he murmured, climbing onto her lap. "I keep thinking about the man at the theater." Emily felt her heart pound. "Why, sweetheart?" "He has the same eyes as me and Ethan," Owen answered with the simple logic of a 4-year-old. "Why do some people look like us, Mom?" The innocent question hit Emily like a punch. How could she explain genetics to a child? How could she talk about family resemblance when the origin story itself was a mystery? "Sometimes it's just a coincidence, my love," she said, kissing his forehead. "Now, how about we get you back to bed?" After settling Owen down again, Emily went to her bedroom and opened her memory box, an old shoebox where she kept her treasures from the twins' early years. The silver medallion was still there, along with the original note and each boy's first little shoe. Her hands trembled as she picked up the medallion. Under the lamp's light, she tried once more to decipher the faded inscription. "For S, always," was all she could make out. Could the S be Sophie? Was she the mysterious young woman in the rain? The sound of her phone startled her. It was a message from Ruth. "I couldn't sleep thinking about what you told me. Come to Willow Creek early tomorrow. We need to talk." Ruth always said there were no coincidences in the universe, only encounters set by fate. Emily looked at the most recent photo of the twins on her nightstand, their identical smiles, expressive eyes, and unruly hair that reminded her so much of Ryan Miller. Her thoughts were interrupted by a noise from the twins' bedroom. This time it was Ethan, standing at the doorway with his teddy bear. "I had a weird dream, Mom," he said, rubbing his eyes. "I dreamed the man from the theater was looking for us." A chill ran down Emily's spine. "It was just a dream, my love," she answered, though her voice wavered slightly. Lying between the twins in her king-sized bed, on those special nights she always gave in to their request to sleep with her, Emily watched their sleeping faces. Every feature, every expression now carried a new significance. She remembered her first year as a single mom, sleepless nights, constant doubts, the fear of not being enough, but also the boys' first words. They both said, "Mommy," on the same day, their first steps taken hand in hand, their first giggles, always in duet. Ruth had been instrumental in that journey. "Being a mother is learning to dance in the rain," she used to say, and Emily had learned between feeding bottles and social reports, between work meetings and pediatric appointments, between fears and joys. Now, 4 years later, that same rain that had brought the twins seemed ready to tell a new story. The encounter with Ryan Miller couldn't be just a coincidence. The similarities were too glaring, the connections too precise. Emily knew she needed to investigate further, for her sons, for the mysterious young woman who brought them, and maybe even for Ryan Miller himself, who dedicated his life to helping orphans without suspecting he might have his own children somewhere. It was 4 in the morning when sleep finally began to overtake her. Ethan snuggled closer, mumbling something in his dreams. On her other side, Owen clutched his blue blanket, the last link to his mysterious past. Emily closed her eyes, but her mind remained busy. Tomorrow she would talk to Ruth. Together, maybe they could unravel this mystery. For now, she allowed herself to take comfort in the boys' soft breathing, grateful for the rain that had brought them to her, and praying for the strength to face whatever the future held for her small family. On the wall, the clock's steady tick-tock seemed to measure not just the hours, but also the secrets that time would inevitably reveal. And outside, the rain started again, echoing that morning 4 years ago when 2 precious lives had been entrusted to her care. The following day promised to mark the start of a journey that would change all their lives. But for now, in that moment suspended between night and dawn, Emily was just a mother, holding her children close, shielding them from nightmares and unsettling coincidences, while her own dreams mingled with memories and unanswered questions. The changes began subtly, like droplets of rain before a storm. Emily first noticed it in the drawings Ethan brought home from school, families unusually large by his usual standards. Besides him, Owen, and Emily, there was a tall figure in the background, only partially colored, like a hesitant shadow. "Who's this, honey?" Emily asked, trying to keep her voice casual as she hung the drawing on the fridge. Ethan shrugged, his eyes locked on his own feet. "I don't know. Sometimes I dream about him." 2 weeks had passed since the encounter with Ryan Miller at the theater, and the twins seemed different. Emily caught them whispering to each other more often, stopping abruptly whenever she approached. Their pretend games now featured new characters, father figures they had never mentioned before. One afternoon, as Emily picked up the boys from school, their teacher, Ms. Smith, asked to speak with her. "Have the twins done something wrong?" Emily asked, her heart tightening as it always did with unexpected teacher meetings. No, Ms. Smith smiled kindly. "But I've noticed some interesting changes in their work." She handed over a stack of drawings. This week's theme was families, and well, maybe you'd like to see. The drawings told a silent story. In each one, the male figure in the background grew more defined. In the last one, Owen had clearly pasted a magazine cutout of Ryan Miller, placing it on the paper as part of his family. "They've been talking a lot about a man they saw at the theater," Ms. Smith noted gently. "It's normal for children this age to start questioning their origins." Emily swallowed hard, tucking the drawings into her folder. "Yes, that's natural," she managed to say, though her mind was already miles away. At home, she found the twins in their room on the floor, heads together over something that looked like a magazine. "What are you looking at?" she asked, making them both jump. "Nothing," they answered in unison, with Owen hurriedly shoving the magazine under the bed. That synchronized response normally would have made her laugh, but today it only deepened her concern. Later that night, after putting the boys to bed, Emily retrieved the magazine. It was an old copy of Forbes with Ryan Miller on the cover. Her stomach clenched at the sight of the marked pages, small fingerprints surrounding the face that looked so much like her son's. The next morning at breakfast, Owen asked the question she'd been dreading. "Mom, why don't we have a dad?" Ethan froze with his spoon halfway to his mouth, both boys fixing their eyes on her, awaiting an answer. Emily took a deep breath, recalling Ruth's advice about age-appropriate honesty. "Every family is different, my loves. Some have a mom and a dad, some just have a mom, some just a dad." "But why is ours only you?" Ethan pressed, his spoon now forgotten in the bowl. "Because that's how our family was formed," Emily replied, feeling her heart tighten. "When you came to me, it was love that brought us together." "But before you," Owen began hesitantly, "did someone not want us?" The question hit Emily like a punch to the stomach. She stood up quickly, pulling both of them into a hug. "You two have always been very loved," she said with conviction. "Sometimes people have to make tough decisions out of love." Later that day at Willow Creek, Emily found Ruth in their shared office. "They're asking questions, Ruth," she said, collapsing into a chair. "And after seeing Ryan Miller, how can I keep avoiding the truth?" Ruth removed her reading glasses, giving Emily that wise look that seemed to see straight through people. "The truth has its own timing, dear, but lies, even well-intentioned ones, tend to grow bitter roots." "But what if," Emily hesitated, her voice trembling, "what if he wants to take them away, Ruth?" "Emily Carter," Ruth said firmly, "those boys are your sons. No judge in the world would deny the love and stability you've given them, but they do have a right to their story." That night, Emily found the twins wide awake, long past bedtime, whispering in their beds. "Do you think he knows about us?" Owen was asking. "Maybe he's looking for us," Ethan answered, "like in that movie about the lost princess." Emily felt her heart break. Standing quietly in the hallway, tears slid silently down her cheeks. How could she possibly explain the complexities of adult life to such young minds? How could she protect their innocence without denying them their own story? The next day, during bath time, Ethan drew another picture in the steam on the mirror. 3 figures holding hands, and a 4th, bigger figure hovering above like a guardian. "Is it him again?" Emily asked softly. Ethan nodded. "Sometimes I feel like he's looking for us, Mom, like he also has a hole in his heart, just like we do." Emily pulled her son close, her clothes getting soaked in the bathwater. How could she explain that the man filling their dreams might not even know they existed? Later in bed, Emily turned the medallion over in her hands. The faded inscription seemed to mock her. "For us, always." Who was Sophie? What led her to leave 2 perfect babies on a rainy morning? And why, 4 years later, did fate insist on weaving their lives together with Ryan Miller's? Her phone vibrated with a message from Ruth. "I found something in the old files. Come early tomorrow." Emily glanced at the photo of the twins on her nightstand. Their matching smiles, so reminiscent of Ryan Miller, made her chest tighten with unanswered questions. The sound of little footsteps alerted her seconds before the bedroom door opened. Ethan and Owen came in, each clutching their teddy bears. "We can't sleep," Owen mumbled. "Can we stay with you?" Ethan added. Emily made room in her bed, welcoming them into her arms. As their breathing slowly evened out, she made a silent promise. She would find answers to their questions, even if it meant facing her own fears. For now, she just held them tighter, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, and perhaps the beginning of a truth that would change their lives forever. The message from Ruth blinked insistently on Emily's phone as she drove through the still dark Los Angeles streets. "I found something. Come now." It was 5 in the morning, and the sky was just starting to lighten. She had left the twins with her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman who helped in emergencies, making up a crisis at work that required her immediate presence. During the drive, her mind traveled between the present and the past. The twins' questions replayed in her memory. Why don't we have a dad? Where did we come from? Why does that man look so much like us? Each question felt like a small blade in her heart, reminding her that some truths can't stay buried forever. Willow Creek Adoption Center loomed against the brightening sky, its historic walls holding countless stories of separation and reunion. Emily knew every corner of that place, every squeak of its wooden floors, every distinct scent that made up its unique atmosphere. But this morning, everything felt different, as if the building itself knew that important secrets were about to be uncovered. Ruth was already waiting for her at the entrance, her signature tidy bun contrasting with the deep circles under her eyes, evidence of a sleepless night. Even after all these years, Emily still admired her mentor's dedication. Ruth was more than a colleague. She was a second mother, a confidant, someone who always seemed to know what to do in the hardest situations. "I spent the night searching the archives," Ruth said bluntly, leading Emily to her office. "Something about your story regarding Ryan Miller jogged a memory I'd tucked away." The office was in organized chaos. Piles of old documents covered every surface, colorful Post-its marked specific pages, and maps of Los Angeles neighborhoods were spread across the walls. At the center of the desk, a faded folder immediately drew Emily's attention. "Do you remember that morning exactly?" Ruth asked, sitting down. "The day she brought the twins?" Emily closed her eyes for a moment. How could she forget? "It was raining," she began. "A heavy rain, one of those that feels like it's cleansing the soul." She was soaked, shivering. "Yes," Ruth interrupted gently. "But there's something you don't know, something that happened after you took the babies inside." Ruth carefully opened the folder, handling it as if it were sacred text. "When the young woman left the twins, we followed standard procedure. We noted down everything found with them. The blue blanket, the medallion you still keep with the partially faded inscription," Emily interjected. "Exactly. But that day, while you were busy with the babies, Jack, our handyman, found something in the garden near the front gate." Ruth held out a plastic-wrapped sheet. It was a student ID card, partially destroyed by rain. The photo was almost unrecognizable, stained and faded, but a name remained legible like a whisper from the past. Sarah Evans, Ph.D. student in comparative literature, University of Southern California. Emily felt her legs weaken, grateful she was sitting. Why didn't you tell me?" Ruth sighed deeply, removing her reading glasses to wipe the lenses, a habit Emily recognized as a sign of nervousness. "Because when we tried to track her down, we discovered she'd suddenly withdrawn from USC. The address listed was fake, and she seemed to have vanished. It was like chasing a ghost." Ruth walked to the old coffee maker in the corner of the room, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air as she continued. "But yesterday, after you told me about Ryan Miller and how the twins reacted, something started to bother me. I spent the night looking into academic events from 5 years ago, especially those linked to the Miller Family Foundation." She turned on her computer, opening an old page from a university newspaper. The time-worn headline announced, "Miller Family Foundation hosts symposium on literature and social change." In the accompanying photo, various academics were gathered around a younger Ryan Miller, his smile, the same smile Emily saw duplicated in her twins every morning, beaming at the camera. And there, nearly hidden at the edge of the image, was the young woman, her green eyes bright with a vivacity Emily had only glimpsed for a moment that rainy morning. "The symposium took place exactly 9 months before the twins were born," Ruth said softly, handing Emily a cup of coffee. "And there's more. Look." She opened another link, an archived academic blog featuring summaries from the symposium's presentations. Sarah Evans's name jumped off the screen. "Trauma and Healing Narratives. Literature as a Bridge to redemption. Her work was about how stories can help people overcome family trauma, Ruth explained. She specifically studied the impact of early parental loss on emotional development. Emily felt a shiver run through her. Were you able to find out where she is now? Ruth nodded, sliding a piece of paper bearing an address written in her elegant handwriting. Sarah Evans. She's been teaching literature at a high school in Westport for 2 years. From what I gathered, she's very well respected by her students and peers. The world seemed to spin around Emily. After 4 years, she finally had a name, a face, her puzzle pieces starting to align. I need to see her, she declared, standing up suddenly. Emily, Ruth held her hand, her wise eyes showing genuine concern. Think this through. It could change everything, not just for you, but especially for the twins. They're asking questions, Ruth. You've seen their drawings, heard their whispers when they think I'm not listening. Ever since they saw Ryan, it's like something awakened in them. They need answers. I need answers. Ruth studied her protégé for a long moment. You've always been the bravest among us, Emily. Even when you were scared, you always chose to face the truth. The drive to Westport felt like an eternity. Emily rehearsed 1,000 times what she would say, how she would broach a subject so delicate. Westport High School was housed in an older, stately building, typical of the area, with its pale stone walls and tall windows reminiscent of a cathedral. Emily parked across the street, watching as students in crisp uniforms arrived for their first period, their laughter and chatter filling the morning air. And then she saw her. Sarah Evans had changed over the past 4 years. Her once long hair was now shoulder length, and a certain maturity marked her face that hadn't existed before. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, contrasting sharply with the frightened young woman in Emily's memory. But her eyes, those same green eyes that had brimmed with tears on that rainy morning, were unmistakable. Emily waited until the break between classes, her heart pounding so hard it felt ready to burst from her chest. With steps that felt like they belonged to someone else, she crossed the courtyard toward the teacher's lounge. Sarah was alone, sorting through papers on her desk. "Ms. Evans?" Sarah looked up, a polite smile on her lips that vanished the moment she recognized Emily. The color drained from her face, and for a moment Emily feared she might faint. Sarah's voice faltered as her fingers gripped the edge of the desk until her knuckles turned white. "I know who you are." Emily closed the door gently behind her. The silence that followed was heavy, weighted by 4 years of unspoken questions, guarded secrets, and lives tied together by fate. "We need to talk," Emily said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. For a moment, it seemed Sarah would run. Her eyes darted to the door, her hands trembling visibly. But then, as if reaching an invisible decision, her shoulders slumped in resignation. "Are they okay?" she whispered so softly, Emily almost missed it. With slightly shaky fingers, Emily took out her phone and opened her photo gallery. The latest picture showed the twins at the park, their identical smiles glowing under the autumn sun. Ethan holding his favorite toy car, and Owen clutching his ever-present teddy bear. Sarah let out a muffled sob, covering her mouth with her hands. They look just like him," she murmured, tears sliding silently down her face. "So it's true," Emily said, not posing it as a question. "Ryan Miller." Sarah nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hands, a gesture eerily reminiscent of Owen when he felt embarrassed. "I never told him. I didn't know if I should. He is so important, so focused on his mission, and I was just a grad student in love with literature and idealism." "Tell me everything," Emily asked, taking a seat across from her. "They're starting to ask questions. I deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know." Sarah stood abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, the courtyard was empty, though echoes of children's laughter still seemed to float in the air. It was during the Literature and Social Change Symposium, she began, her voice distant, as if reliving each moment. I was presenting my research on trauma and healing narratives. It was very personal, based on my own experiences with loss. She paused, taking a deep breath. Ryan. He was fascinated by the topic. After my presentation, he found me to discuss it. We ended up talking all night in the university garden, debating how literature can change lives, how stories can heal old wounds. A sad smile touched her lips. It was magical. He wasn't the famous billionaire that night, just a man passionate about making a difference. He told me about his own story, how he was abandoned, how reading saved him during hard times in foster care, how he dreamed of creating a better adoption system. We met a few more times during the symposium. It felt like a fairy tale. On the last night, he gave me this medallion. She reached instinctively for her neck, where an empty space hinted at a long-lost item. The medallion found with the twins, Emily added. Yes, it was a Miller family heirloom. The inscription said, "For Sarah, always yours, R on the back." He told me it once belonged to his birth mother, the only thing she left when she abandoned him. Sarah sat down again, her restless hands fiddling with a pencil on the desk. When I found out I was pregnant, he was already traveling for a series of international obligations. I tried calling, but how do you explain something like this over the phone? Then, Emily prompted. The depression started. It wasn't new to me. My mother battled it her whole life, and eventually, she took her own life when I was 12. I was terrified of repeating that cycle, of not being able to care for a baby, let alone two. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks again. I dropped out of my program, isolated myself. I spent the pregnancy nearly reclusive, terrified that I'd fail these babies. When they were born, God, they were so perfect, but that only made the fear worse. Postpartum depression was brutal. I could barely take care of myself, much less two infants. Why choose Willow Creek? Emily asked gently. I researched every orphanage in the area. Willow Creek had the best reputation, and when I saw you that morning, there was something in your eyes, a kindness that gave me hope. Sarah turned to Emily. I've never forgiven myself for leaving them, but I never doubted I made the right choice for them. So why didn't you reach out to Ryan once you got better? Emily questioned. Sarah let out a humorless laugh. Look at him now, a mogul building his empire on helping abandoned children. How could I possibly tell him I had abandoned his children? Besides, they have you. I saw in the photos, they're loved and happy. What right do I have to disrupt that? Emily studied the woman in front of her. Gone was the frightened girl of 4 years ago, replaced by someone who bore her scars with dignity, having found a path forward without forgetting the past. I work with children now, Sarah continued, indicating the stack of papers on her desk. I guess it's my way of making amends. Every student I help, every life I touch, it's a small way of atoning. I teach literature because I believe in the power of stories to help us understand who we are. The twins saw Ryan, Emily said at last, in a movie theater a few weeks ago. They recognized the likeness immediately. Since then, they've been drawing him, whispering to each other. It's like something awakened inside them. Sarah closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Of course they did. They're as sharp as he is. They have that same keen intuition Ryan always showed. They're asking questions, Sarah, about their origins, about family. I can't pretend I don't know, especially now that I see how deeply you and Ryan are connected to their story. What do you plan to do? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. It was the same question that had kept Emily awake at night, echoing every time she looked at her children. I don't know, she admitted finally, but I think they deserve to know their full story. And Ryan. Ryan will want to know them, Sarah finished confidently. He may be many things, but he's never been a man who shirks responsibility. And more than that, They're everything he ever wanted. A family. I'm scared, Emily confessed, her voice cracking. Scared of losing them? They're my entire world. Sarah stood, stepping around the desk to sit beside Emily. Hesitantly, she placed a gentle hand on Emily's arm. You are their mother, Emily? The real mother who's been there every moment, every fever, every nightmare, every milestone. Nothing will change that. Neither I, nor Ryan, nor anyone can erase the bond you share. The bell rang, signaling the end of break. The murmur of returning students began to fill the hall. Sarah wiped away the final traces of her tears, visibly pulling herself together. I need to get back to my class, she said, jotting something on a piece of paper. This is my number. When you decide to tell Ryan, I'd like to be there. I owe them that. I owe all of you. Emily slipped the paper into her purse, feeling its weight as if it were made of lead. The medallion? Why leave it with them? Sarah gave a sad smile. Because it was the only proof that night was real, that for a moment Ryan Miller and I shared something true. And maybe I hoped that one day it would lead them back to him, that fate would find a way. Leaving Westport High School, Emily felt as if she had aged decades in a few hours. The truth, finally revealed, pressed heavily on her shoulders. But there was also a sense of relief, the puzzle pieces clicking into place, forming a picture that, while complex, at last made sense. Her phone rang. It was Ruth. How did it go? I found all the answers, Emily replied, her voice trembling. And now I have even more questions. Come here, Ruth said in that reassuringly firm tone she always used. We need to talk. Emily glanced at the sky. Dark clouds were gathering, promising rain like that morning 4 years ago when her life had changed forever. Now it was about to change again. On her phone, the photo of the twins beamed up at her. Ethan and Owen, her boys, Ryan Miller's children. The gift Sarah had entrusted to her on a rainy morning. The truth was complicated, painful, but also freeing. The first raindrop hit the windshield as she headed back to Los Angeles. In a few hours, she would pick up the twins from Mrs. Rodriguez. They would ask about her work emergency, and for the first time in 4 years, Emily considered telling them a version of the truth. Because now she knew some stories must be told, no matter how difficult. Some truths must come to light, no matter how many storms they might unleash. And perhaps, like the rain now falling, this truth could wash away the past and nourish a new beginning for all of them. Rain pelted the windows of Willow Creek when Emily returned from her meeting with Sarah. Ruth was waiting in her office, 2 cups of steaming tea on the table, as though she knew exactly what her protégé would need after such an intense morning. So it's true, Ruth said softly, watching Emily sink into a chair. Ryan Miller is the father. Emily nodded, her hands trembling slightly around the teacup. Sarah confirmed it all. The symposium, their meeting, the medallion. How didn't we see it sooner, Ruth? The similarities are so obvious. Sometimes we don't see what's right before our eyes until we're forced to look, Ruth replied, getting up to pull a file from a shelf. Now we have to discuss what to do with this information. The sound of footsteps in the hall interrupted them. It was Mr. Davis, the lawyer who advised the orphanage and a close friend of Ruth's, stepping in, his suit splashed with raindrops. I asked Mr. Davis to come, Ruth explained. We need to understand all the legal implications of this situation. Mr. Davis set his briefcase on the table, his usually cheerful face serious. Ruth filled me in on the basics. It's delicate, to say the least. How delicate? Emily asked, fearing the answer. Miller has nearly unlimited resources and a formidable legal team, Mr. Davis said gently. If he decided to contest the adoption, he could argue his paternal rights were violated. He never had a chance to exercise them because the information was kept from him. But Sarah never told him, Emily protested. That was her choice. Yes, but now you know. Continuing to keep it from him could be seen as bad faith in court. Emily jumped up and walked to the window. Outside, the rain drenched the same garden where Sarah had left her sons 4 years ago. Her sons. The phrase now carried a different weight. "It's not just a legal question," Ruth interjected softly. "It's an ethical one. The boys have a right to know their origins, their true story." "What if he wants to take them?" Emily asked, her voice quivering. "Have you seen the news? The Miller Family Foundation just opened 3 more centers for underprivileged kids. He has everything: money, influence, a mission focused exactly on kids like Ethan and Owen once were." "Emily," Mr. Davis said, his tone shifting to gentle reassurance, "you have something money can't buy: 4 years of love, care, and devotion. No judge would ignore that." Emily picked up her phone, opening her photo gallery. The images told the story of the last 4 years: the twins' first steps, their first day of preschool, birthdays, everyday moments that now felt even more precious. "The boys made another drawing today," she said after a long silence. "Owen drew our family, but left an empty space next to him. When I asked him about it, he said it was for someone he didn't know yet, but felt was looking for them." Ruth and Mr. Davis exchanged meaningful glances. "They sense it," Emily continued. "Somehow they know there's more to their story. How can I deny that?" "But you also can't act rashly," Mr. Davis advised. "We need to plan how to approach this legally, maybe draw up a preliminary agreement that clearly defines each party's rights and responsibilities." Emily shook her head. "I can't keep hiding it. Every time they ask about their origins, every time I see Ryan Miller in the news, it feels like I'm betraying them." "So what are you going to do?" Ruth asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "I'm going to tell him," Emily said with a conviction that surprised even her. "Not through lawyers or intermediaries. I need to do this, face to face." Mr. Davis leaned forward, worry etched on his features. "Emily, think carefully. Miller is a powerful man, used to getting what he wants. If he decides to fight for custody—" "Then I'll fight too," Emily interrupted. "But I can't live with this secret. I can't look into my son's eyes knowing I'm withholding something so fundamental about who they are." Ruth stood and laid a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "How do you plan to approach him?" Emily picked up her tablet, showing them a news announcement. Miller Family Foundation to inaugurate new community center this Saturday. Ryan Miller will be present for a talk on social transformation. "Emily," Mr. Davis cautioned. "In public?" "No," she said with a sad smile. "I'll use my contacts as a social worker to request a private meeting. He needs to hear this far from the spotlight, away from cameras. He needs to see the photos, understand their first years, realize he's not just a biological father, he's the father of 2 real children with personalities, dreams, and fears." "What if he reacts badly?" Ruth asked gently. "Then at least I'll know I did the right thing," Emily said. "The boys deserve their full story, and Ryan deserves to know he has 2 incredible sons." Mr. Davis began rifling through his briefcase. "Let me at least draw up some preliminary legal protections." "Thank you, Mr. Davis, but first I have to do it my way. As a mother, not as a legal adversary." Leaving Willow Creek that evening, Emily realized the rain had finally stopped. In the sky, amidst the dispersing clouds, a few stars had begun to appear. She paused in the garden, the exact spot where Sarah had left the twins 4 years prior. Fate had a strange way of weaving lives together, connecting seemingly distant paths. Her phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. "Whatever your decision, I'll be here." Emily inhaled deeply and typed her reply. "I'm going to tell him. The boys deserve to know their full story." Driving home, where Mrs. Rodriguez was caring for the twins, Emily mentally rehearsed how she would break the news to Ryan Miller, how to explain that his social projects, his desire to help abandoned children, were more personal than he ever imagined. In her rearview mirror, Willow Creek shrank until it vanished into the night. But Emily knew she was leaving behind more than a building. She was leaving behind the safety of secrecy, the comfort of her established routine. Ahead lay a new chapter, about to begin, and this time it wouldn't just be her story, or the twins' story, or even Ryan Miller's story. It would be the story of all of them, intertwined by destiny, love, and the courage to face the truth, no matter how frightening it might be. The Miller Family Foundation's new community center was an impressive building, its large windows letting natural light flood the space. Emily studied her reflection in the lobby's glass, nervously adjusting the navy blue blazer Ruth had insisted she wear. "You need to look professional," her mentor had said, "even if you're falling apart inside." "Ms. Carter," the receptionist asked politely. "Mr. Miller will see you now. Please follow me." The elevator glided silently up to the top floor. Emily clutched her folder against her chest, filled with the twins' photos and all the documentation Mr. Davis had prepared. Just in case, he'd insisted. Ryan Miller stood with his back to the door when she entered, looking out over Los Angeles through the glass wall of his office. He was taller than he seemed in photos, exuding the same poised bearing that Ethan was already beginning to imitate. "Ms. Carter," he said, turning around, flashing the same smile Emily recognized from the twins' faces each morning. "Ruth Johnson spoke highly of your work at Willow Creek. I'm interested in hearing your ideas for a possible partnership." Emily felt her legs wobble. Up close, the resemblance to the twins was even more striking. The same eye shape, the same determined jawline, even the slight head tilt he adopted when intrigued. "Mr. Miller," she began, voice steadier than she felt, "I'm not actually here to talk about partnerships." Ryan frowned, the very same way Owen did when puzzled. "I don't understand. This meeting was scheduled to discuss—" "I'm here about something far more personal," Emily cut in, her hands trembling as she opened her folder. "It involves something that happened 4 years ago during a literature and social change symposium at USC. The professional smile on Ryan's face faltered. "The symposium? It was a major event for the foundation, but I don't see—" "You met a PhD student named Sarah Evans." The name had an immediate effect. Ryan walked over to his desk, bracing himself on it. "Sarah? Yes, of course. She did fascinating research on trauma narratives, but that was years ago." "What?" Emily took out the first photo. It was a recent snapshot of the twins at the park, laughing into the camera, their eyes, Ryan's eyes, shining with innocent joy. Ryan accepted the photo, his hands trembling almost imperceptibly. He stared at it for long seconds, his expression shifting from confusion to dawning comprehension. "No," he whispered. That can't be." "Ethan and Owen," Emily said softly. "They're 4 years old. They were left at Willow Creek on a rainy October morning 4 years ago." Ryan staggered back into his chair, still holding the photo. "Sarah, she was—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Pregnant, yes." Emily produced more photos. "She never told you. When she found out you were traveling, and then she abandoned them?" Ryan's voice held a dangerous edge, a blend of pain and anger. "How could she? How could anyone?" "She was sick," Emily interjected quickly. "Severe depression, worsened by pregnancy and childbirth. She did what she felt was best for the babies." Ryan jumped up, pacing to the window, his silhouette against the Los Angeles skyline, pulsing with palpable tension. "Why now?" he asked finally. "Why after 4 years?" Emily took a deep breath. "Because they saw you, at the theater, a few weeks ago. They noticed the resemblance immediately. Since then, they've been asking questions, drawing your face. They sensed something about their story." Ryan turned around, his eyes shining with unshed tears. You are?" "I'm their mother," Emily finished softly. "I adopted them shortly after they arrived at the center." Silence fell like a hammer. Ryan sat back down, spreading the photos across his desk. The twins as newborns, their first steps, birthday parties, everyday scenes. "They're identical to me," he murmured. eyes fixed on a photo of Ethan frowning in the exact same way he did. How could I not know? Why didn't anyone tell me? Sarah left only one thing with them, Emily explained. Your medallion. It's only recently we connected the dots. Ryan closed his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek. My mother's medallion. I gave it to Sarah the last night of the symposium. I know, Emily said. She told me everything yesterday. Ryan's eyes opened abruptly. You spoke to her? Yes, she teaches in Westport now. She's doing better, and she's never forgiven herself for having to leave them. Ryan resumed pacing, restless energy filling the office. I have children, he murmured, as if testing the words. I have 2 children, all this time, while I was building centers to help abandoned kids. You must understand, Emily interjected. They're happy, loved. They weren't left to fend for themselves. They were entrusted to me. And You raised them, Ryan finished gently, his voice softening. You took care of them, loved them, gave them a home? He paused, looking at Emily with new eyes. Why are you telling me now? You must know I could contest the adoption. Emily's heart raced. Yes, I know. My lawyer made that risk very clear. But I also know you've devoted your life to helping children find families, not to tearing them apart. Ryan sat again, picking up the most recent photo of the twins. What are they like? Their personalities, I mean. Emily's face lit up, as it always did when talking about her kids. Ethan is more daring, always leading their little adventures. Owen is quieter. He loves books, much like you, according to Sarah. They're inseparable, finishing each other's sentences, sharing a secret language of their own. Do they know about me? Ryan asked. They know there's a resemblance. Since they saw you, they've been questioning their origins. But I haven't told them anything yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Ryan nodded slowly, still processing each detail in the photos. Can I meet them? The question Emily had feared most. Yes, she answered after a beat, but we have to do it carefully. They're little, sensitive. We need to consider how this revelation will affect them emotionally. Of course, Ryan agreed. I need time to process all this. He laughed humorlessly. Not every day you discover you have 4-year-old twins. Emily started gathering the photos, but Ryan stopped her. Could I keep a few? Of course, she said gently. I have more at home. As Emily stood to leave, Ryan called her name. Ms. Carter, please call me Emily. Emily, he corrected. Thank you for taking care of them, for loving them, and for having the courage to tell me the truth. On the elevator ride down, Emily finally allowed her tears to fall. She had done it. She had told Ryan Miller the truth. Now she could only hope her honesty wouldn't cost her the 2 people she loved most in the world. Her phone buzzed with a message from Ruth. How did it go? Emily glanced up at the top floor of the building one last time before replying. He wants to meet them, and he wants a DNA test. A follow-up message came from Sarah. Does he know? Yes, Emily replied. Now we begin a new chapter. The sun was setting over Los Angeles as Emily left the Miller Family Foundation building. High above, Ryan Miller remained in his office, surrounded by photographs of 2 little boys who were his mirror image, trying to grasp how his life had changed in a single afternoon. Ryan Miller didn't sleep that night. In his luxury apartment on Fifth Avenue, the photos Emily had given him lay scattered across his desk, illuminated by the soft glow of a lamp. Each picture was a window into a life he never realized existed, a life that was part of him, yet from which he had been absent for 4 years. His phone rang. It was Richard Miller, his adoptive father. You canceled 3 meetings today. Richard's deep voice sounded worried. That's not like you, Ryan. Everything all right? Ryan looked at the latest photo of the twins. I'm not sure, Dad. I need to tell you something, but not over the phone." 2 hours later, Richard Miller was stepping into his son's apartment, his imposing figure carrying a real sense of concern. "They're my children," Ryan announced without preamble, handing him the photo. "Therefore, I found out today." Richard sank into a chair, eyes on the image. "How?" "Sarah Evans, from the Literature Symposium, remember? She never told me about the pregnancy. She left them in an orphanage, the very situation we are trying to prevent through our projects." "My God," Richard murmured. "The resemblance is undeniable." "I'll take a DNA test tomorrow," Ryan completed. "I've already scheduled it at the best lab in the city. And the adoptive mother, this Emily Carter? She's a social worker at the orphanage where Sarah left them. Ryan paused, swallowing hard. "She's raised them as her own. They're clearly loved, well cared for." Richard studied his son for a moment. "What are you going to do?" "First, confirm paternity. Then—" Ryan ran his hands over his face, exhausted. "I need to speak with Sarah, understand why she didn't tell me." The next morning, the lab was quiet when Ryan arrived. The procedure was quick, a saliva swab, some signatures. "Results will be ready in 48 hours, the technician said, but Ryan couldn't wait that long. Using the address Emily had given him, he drove to Westport. Westport High was on a break between classes when he arrived. Sarah was in her classroom grading papers when he walked in. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. It had been 5 years since they last saw each other. "Ryan," she whispered, standing up. "Emily told me you'd come." "Why?" His question sounded harsher than intended. "Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah closed her eyes, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. "I was sick, Ryan. So sick. The depression. It felt like drowning. And the babies? They deserved more than I could give. But I had a right to know. I could have helped. We could have—" "What? Gotten married? Built a family overnight?" Sarah interrupted. "You were building your philanthropic empire. I was just a student fighting my own demons." Ryan walked to the window, observing the students in the courtyard. "They're beautiful," he said after a moment. "They seem happy in the pictures." "They are," Sarah confirmed. "Emily, she's the mother I couldn't be, the mother they deserve." "And me? What kind of father can I be now after 4 years?" Ryan asked, voice low. "The kind of father they need," Sarah answered softly. "The kind of father you always wished you had before the Millers adopted you." Ryan turned sharply. "How did you—" "Your story with orphanages didn't begin with your foundation, Ryan. It began when you were left in one," Sarah said, touching his arm tentatively. "Maybe that's why destiny arranged it this way. So you could give them what you always wished for yourself. A chance at having 2 different kinds of love." Ryan's phone vibrated. A text from the lab. His request for expedited results had been granted. Positive, a 99.999% probability of paternity. His legs nearly gave out, and he had to steady himself on Sarah's desk. "It's official," he whispered. "I'm a father to twins." "What will you do?" Sarah asked. Ryan stared at the message a moment longer before tucking the phone away. "I'm going to be part of their lives. I don't know how yet or on what terms Emily will allow, but I can't stay away. Not now that I know." "They're very intuitive," Sarah said. "Always have been. Maybe that's why they recognized something in you at the theater." "Emily said they've been asking questions, drawing pictures," Ryan mused. "Kids sense things," Sarah offered a sad smile. "I should know. I work with them now. It's my own way of, trying to make amends." The bell rang, signaling the end of break. Ryan was about to leave, but paused at the door. "Sarah, yes, I understand. I don't approve, but I understand why you did what you did." Back in his office, Ryan found his father waiting. "The test was positive," he announced plainly. "I assumed as much," Richard replied. "And now?" Ryan picked up his phone, dialing Emily's number. She answered on the second ring. "The results confirmed it," he said. "I'd like to officially meet them, if that's all right with you." A pause on the other end. "We can meet tomorrow," Emily finally replied, "to discuss how to handle this in the best possible way for them." After hanging up, Ryan focused again on the photos spread across his desk. Ethan and Owen, his sons. The words still sounded strange in his mind, but strangely right. "You know," Richard said, watching his son, "when the Millers adopted you, you were 5. I was terrified. I had no idea how to be a father, especially to a child who'd already experienced abandonment. And here I am, facing the same situation." "Not exactly," Richard smiled. "They have Emily. They're not alone the way you were. And you have the chance to be a different kind of father. An additional father, not a replacement." Ryan nodded slowly, an idea forming. "I have some calls to make," he said, picking up his phone. "I need to cancel a few things, reorganize my schedule." "You're going to commit to this." "I'm going to do it right, Dad. They deserve that. They deserve to know that even though I wasn't there from the start, now that I do know about them, I choose to be present." That night, alone in his apartment, Ryan picked up an old photo of himself at 5 years old on the day the Millers adopted him. Next to it, he placed the new photo of the twins. The parallels were startling, not just in physical appearance, but in the way fate seemed to weave their stories. His phone buzzed with a message from Emily, a photo of the twins sleeping, taken just then, captioned, "Good night, Dad." Ryan felt tears well up. It was real. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. And tomorrow would be just the beginning. The law firm Davis & Associates occupied an entire floor of a historic building in downtown Los Angeles. Emily looked out the window of the reception area, her pale reflection overlapping with the busy street below. Mr. Davis's message the previous night still echoed in her mind. "We need to talk. It's urgent." Across town at that very moment, Ryan Miller faced a similar situation in the office of Mr. Thompson, the corporate attorney who had represented the Miller Family Foundation for over 2 decades. "It's a delicate matter, Ryan," Mr. Thompson said, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses, "but also a unique opportunity." "Opportunity?" Ryan frowned, a gesture he now recognized he'd inherited from his own birth father and passed on to his sons. "We're talking about the lives of 2 children." "Exactly," the lawyer said with a smile that didn't reach his calculating eyes. "2 children who rightfully belong to you. Think of the story. The billionaire philanthropist who dedicates his life to orphans discovers he has kids who were placed for adoption without his knowledge. It's perfect." "Perfect?" Ryan's stomach turned. "Are you suggesting I use my own children as a PR move?" "I'm suggesting we take advantage of a situation that already exists. The preliminary reports I requested show we have a solid case to contest the adoption. You never waived your parental rights. Indeed, you couldn't have, as you didn't know about the children. Legally, the adoption might be invalidated." Meanwhile, at Davis & Associates, Mr. Davis presented Emily with an equally troubling scenario. "Thompson's firm reached out," he said, spreading documents on his desk. "They're citing legal precedents to contest the adoption." Emily felt the world tilt. "But Ryan said he only wanted to be part of their lives. He told me he wasn't going to—" "Ryan Miller might have the best intentions," Mr. Davis said gently, "but he's surrounded by people who see this as a golden opportunity. Imagine the headlines: 'Billionaire fights to reclaim children given up for adoption without his knowledge.'" "They're my children," Emily whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "I've lived every day of the last 4 years with them." "And that's exactly why we have to act fast," Mr. Davis replied. "I'll file a protective order to secure your custody while we sort this out." Back at Thompson's office, Ryan stood abruptly. "I'm not going to sue Emily. She's a wonderful mother, and the boys adore her." "No one is suggesting otherwise," Mr. Thompson replied smoothly. "But you are their biological father. Your rights were ignored. And more importantly, you have the resources to give these children opportunities an underpaid social worker never could." Emily gave them the most important thing: love, stability, a home, Ryan retorted. "And you can give them all that and more," Mr. Thompson insisted. "Private schools, international travel, connections that will shape their future. What judge wouldn't see that as the children's best interest?" Ryan walked to the window, looking at the city below. Somewhere out there, his sons were probably having another ordinary day, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. His phone buzzed with a text from Emily, showing a photo. The twins at breakfast, Ethan with jam on his nose, Owen laughing at something his brother said. The caption read simply, "They asked about you today." "I can't do this," Ryan muttered. "Pardon?" Mr. Thompson looked up from the documents he was reviewing. "I'm not going to take Emily to court. I'm not going to try to take the boys away from her." "Ryan, be reasonable," Mr. Thompson began. "Reasonable?" Ryan turned, anger lacing his voice. "You know what's not reasonable? Destroying the family they know just because I found out I'm their father. They're not a legal case, Thompson. They're children. My children." In Mr. Davis's office, Emily answered a call from Ruth. "The twins are fine, here with me at Willow Creek," her mentor reassured. "But Emily, they're asking more questions today." Owen drew Ryan again, this time right next to them in what looks like a park. Emily's eyes stung with tears as she recalled the previous weekend. Ryan had accidentally turned up at the same park where she often took the boys. It was a brief, seemingly chance encounter, but the twins wouldn't stop talking about the nice man from the movies who had played with them. "I can't lose them, Ruth," Emily whispered. "They're my whole life." "No one's going to take your children," Mr. Davis said resolutely. "But we need to prepare for a legal fight." The rest of the day became a blur of meetings, paperwork, and strategic planning. By the time Emily got home, she found the twins drawing at the kitchen table. "What are you working on, loves?" "Drawing our family," Ethan answered, not looking up. Emily felt her heart clench at the sight. She was there in the picture, but now there was a tall male figure beside her, smiling and wearing the kind of suit Ryan wore when they'd met at the park. "Mom," Owen asked hesitantly, "why does that man at the park look so much like us?" Before Emily could respond, the doorbell rang. It was Ryan. "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced," he said quickly, "but I had to talk to you. It's important." The twins ran to the door upon hearing his voice. "Did you come to play with us again?" Ethan asked hopefully. Ryan felt his heart twist. "Not today, buddy. I need to have a grown-up talk with your mom." After Ruth, who had coincidentally arrived for a surprise visit, took the boys out for ice cream, Ryan and Emily sat in the living room. "My attorney wants me to file a custody lawsuit," Ryan said, getting straight to the point. Emily felt the air rush out of her lungs. "And you?" "I'm not going to do it," he interrupted. "I can't. It wouldn't be right for them, or for you." The tears Emily had been holding back all day finally spilled. "I was so scared. Mr. Davis told me your firm was preparing—" "Thompson has his own ideas of how to handle things," Ryan said bitterly. "But this isn't a legal case or a PR opportunity. It's about family, about doing what's best for Ethan and Owen." "What do you think is best for them?" Emily asked. Ryan rose and walked to a wall filled with photos documenting the twins' lives. "Look at these pictures, Emily. In every single one, they're happy, safe, loved. You built that. You're their mother in every way that matters." "But you are their father," Emily said softly. "Yes, I am, and I want to be part of their lives, but not at the cost of destroying everything they know." The silence that followed was broken by the distant sounds of the twins laughing in the street. Ruth was returning with them. "What do we do now?" Emily asked. "First, we fire our current lawyers," Ryan said with a wry grin. "Then we find someone who will help us create an agreement that protects everyone's interests, especially the boys." "And telling them?" Ryan looked out the window, seeing Ethan and Owen racing along the sidewalk, chocolate smeared on their faces. "We have to do it soon. They already sense it. They're too smart not to." "I'm afraid," Emily admitted. "Afraid of how they'll react, afraid it'll change everything." "It will change," Ryan said honestly, "but maybe for the better. They'll gain a father who already loves them more than anything, without losing the amazing mother they have." Just then the door opened and the twins bounded in. "Mom, Mr. Miller!" Ethan cried. "Aunt Ruth got us chocolate ice cream and she said you can stay for dinner," Owen added hopefully. Ryan glanced at Emily, who gave him a slight nod. "Well, if your mom agrees." "Yay!" the boys cheered in unison. While she watched Ryan being dragged away by the twins to admire their latest drawings, Emily felt a heavy weight lift from her chest. The legal fight she had feared might be avoided after all. In its place, a new possibility was emerging, a family that might be different, bigger, more complicated, but still held together by love for these two special children. Ruth, watching from the doorway, gave a gentle smile. "Sometimes," she commented, "the greatest victories don't come from winning battles, but from choosing not to fight." That night, after the twins had finally fallen asleep, not without making Ryan promise to come back the next day, Emily found him in the living room, gazing at the pictures on the wall. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For choosing peace instead of war, for putting them first." Ryan smiled, that same grin she saw reflected in their sons. "You know what made me decide? When Thompson started talking about elite schools and opportunities, I realized he missed the point. Money, status, connections. They're nothing compared to what you've given them. Unconditional love, security, the freedom to just be kids." "We still have a lot to figure out," Emily cautioned. "Yes, but we'll do it together, as a family, even if it's not a normal one." When Ryan finally left, Emily discovered an envelope on her table. Inside was a formal letter terminating the services of Thompson's firm, signed by Ryan, along with a handwritten note. "Tomorrow we find a new attorney, one who knows some victories can't be measured in legal terms." Back in his own office, Ryan did something similar, drafting a letter dismissing Thompson from this particular case. On his desk, a photo of the twins smiling reminded him what really mattered. His phone rang. It was his adoptive father. "I heard you let Thompson go," Richard said without greeting. "He doesn't understand what's at stake," Ryan replied. "This isn't about winning or losing, Dad. It's about doing what's right." "You're making the right choice, son," Richard affirmed. "Sometimes being a father means putting your kids' needs above all else, even above our own rights." As night fell over the city, two people in different places looked at the same starry sky. Emily, tucked in bed with her sleeping children, and Ryan, in his lavish but strangely lonely apartment, both thinking about the next day. A tomorrow not defined by lawsuits or contested rights, but by the courage of two people who, for the love of two special boys, chose the harder path, one of understanding, cooperation, and building a new kind of family. And somewhere between fear and hope, between past and future, one certainty began to form. Some battles are won not by fighting, but by having the wisdom to lay down your arms and reach out in peace. The Miller Family Foundation's conference room was packed on that Thursday morning. On one side of the table, Mr. Thompson and his legal team waited with tense expressions. Opposite them sat Mr. Davis, beside Emily, who tried to remain composed despite her nerves. Ryan occupied the head of the table, with his father, Richard, by his side. "Before we begin," Ryan said, standing up, "I'd like to make my position clear." He pulled an envelope from his briefcase. "This is my formal decision not to contest the adoption of my children." A buzz of whispers spread around the room. Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses, clearly uneasy. "Ryan, I recommend you reconsider the legal precedents we've compiled." "No," Ryan interrupted firmly. "I've spent the last few weeks getting to know my kids, not as a legal matter, but as real people. Ethan, who loves dinosaurs and can't stop laughing once he starts, and Owen, who is thoughtful and bookish." He walked to the window, gazing out at Los Angeles. "You know what Ethan asked me yesterday when I accidentally ran into him at the park?" He said, "Why do you look so much like us, Mr. Miller?" And Owen drew our family, everyone together, him, Ethan, Emily, and me. "Which is precisely why," Mr. Thompson tried again, we should put them first," Ryan finished. "Instead of a legal war that would bring them nothing but trauma, I propose something else." He pulled another document from his briefcase. "A shared custody agreement legally recognizing what already exists. Emily is their mother. I am their father. And together we can give Ethan and Owen what many kids only dream about: 2 loving homes." Emily felt tears prick her eyes, this time from relief. Mr. Davis gave a small nod. He was already familiar with the draft agreement he'd helped prepare. "This is unusual," one of Thompson's associates commented. "Like our entire situation," Ryan said with a smile. "Sometimes the unusual is exactly what we need." Richard Miller, who had remained silent until then, cleared his throat. "As chairman of the foundation board, I fully support Ryan's decision. In fact," he looked proudly at his son, "I've never been prouder of him." Mr. Thompson made one last attempt. "The press will speculate." "Let them speculate," Ryan shrugged. "I'll give one interview explaining I found my children, that they have a wonderful mother, and that we're building a harmonious family. End of story." Emily scanned the custody agreement Ryan proposed. It was generous, respectful, and most importantly, centered on the twins' well-being. It allowed regular visits, input on major decisions, but kept their primary residence with her. "This is perfect," she whispered. "No," Ryan corrected gently. "It's just the beginning. We still have to tell them, help them understand, create new routines. But at least now we can do it without the shadow of a court battle." The meeting continued through logistical details, but the initial tension had dissolved. When it ended, Mr. Thompson and his team left, clearly disgruntled, while Mr. Davis seemed pleased with the outcome. "I'll finalize the documents," he said, "but Ryan, you've just set a remarkable precedent." After everyone left, Emily and Ryan remained in the room with Richard. "How do we tell them?" Emily asked, worry evident in her voice. "With honesty and love," Richard answered, before Ryan could. "That's how we explained Ryan's adoption to him. And it worked." "Dad," Ryan said, smiling, "are you suggesting we use your experience?" "I'm saying sometimes life prepares us for challenges we never expected," Richard replied, standing up and squeezing his son's shoulder. "You were a scared little boy when we met, Ryan, but your heart was open to love. Ethan and Owen are the same. I see that." That evening, Ryan joined Emily for dinner at her apartment, a new habit they were forming. The twins greeted him with their usual joy, now used to his frequent visits. "Look what I drew," Ethan exclaimed, showing a piece of art in which 5 smiling figures, himself, Owen, Emily, Ryan, and even Sarah, whom they hadn't met yet, formed a ring, holding hands. "That's our family," Owen explained shyly, "but it's not complete yet. There are people we still don't know very well." Ryan and Emily exchanged knowing looks. The children, in their innocent wisdom, were already paving the way for the truth. After the boys were in bed, Ryan and Emily sat on the balcony, sharing a glass of wine in the comfortable silence that had grown between them. "Thank you," Emily finally said, "for choosing this path." "It wasn't a hard choice," Ryan replied. "You know what really convinced me? Watching how they run to you when they're happy, sad, or scared. How they look for your approval before any new adventure. That's what being a mother is, Emily. No legal paper can replace that." And now they have a father too, she smiled. A father who chose to love them more than pride or legal rights. From the boys' bedroom came a muffled giggle, likely conspiring some pre-bedtime mischief. It was a sound familiar to Emily, and now to Ryan too, who was beginning to learn all the nuances of his children. "Tomorrow?" Ryan asked. Emily nodded. "Tomorrow, we tell them, together, like a family." Later that night, as Ryan arrived at his apartment, he found a message from his father waiting. "Today you honored the Miller name, son, not with power or influence, but by having the courage to choose love." On the table beside the twins' photo lay the custody agreement that would change their lives. It wasn't surrender, as Mr. Thompson had implied, nor was it defeat, as the legal team had feared. It was a victory, the triumph of love over pride, of wisdom over power. Tomorrow would be a new day, the first of many in his new life as Ethan and Owen's official father. There would be challenges, of course, adjustments to make, difficult moments to navigate. But for the first time since discovering the twins, Ryan felt he was truly on the right path. Somewhere in the city, two children slept peacefully, their dreams filled with a family that grew not through lawsuits, but through love, understanding, and two adults brave enough to place their happiness first. A bright morning dawned as Emily, Ryan, and Sarah gathered in Emily's living room. It was Saturday, and the twins were still asleep, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. "Are you both sure about this?" Sarah asked nervously, fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. "Maybe they're still so young." "They already sense it," Emily said softly. "Their drawings, their questions, they're becoming more frequent. We need to tell them before they start inventing their own explanations." Ryan nodded, resting a hand on the photo album they had prepared, a carefully arranged timeline to help explain everything in a child-friendly way. The sound of small footsteps announced the twins' arrival. Ethan came first, his messy hair reminding Sarah so much of Ryan that her heart clenched. Owen followed, hugging his teddy bear. "Mr. Miller!" Ethan exclaimed happily. "Are you here to play?" "Actually," Ryan smiled, "we came to tell you a very special story, a true story about family." The boys settled on the couch between Emily and Ryan, while Sarah sat in an armchair close by. Emily began with her usual warm, reassuring tone. "You know all families are different, right? Some have a mom and a dad, some just a mom, some just a dad." "Like Lisa in our class," Owen interjected. "She has two moms." "Exactly," Emily smiled. "And now our family is going to be a little different too, more special." Ryan opened the album to the first picture, a 5-year-old boy in a foster home, himself. "Do you know who this little boy is?" The twins leaned in. "He looks like us," Ethan exclaimed. "Yes, he does," Ryan confirmed, "because I'm your dad." A surprised silence filled the living room. Owen gripped his teddy bear tighter while Ethan looked from Ryan to Emily, confused. "But Mom is our mom," Owen finally said in a small voice. "Yes, honey," Emily hugged him. "I'll always be your mom, but you also have a dad, Ryan, and there's someone else who's very special too." Sarah approached slowly, smiling gently. The boys watched her curiously. "A long time ago," Ryan continued, turning to the next page of the album, "before you were born, something magical happened, like in the storybooks you love, except this story is real." For the next hour, they offered a simplified, age-appropriate version of the whole story. Sarah's illness and reason for entrusting them to others, how Emily became their mother, and how Ryan discovered them by chance at the theater. "So you're really our dad?" Ethan asked, his eyes locked on Ryan's. "Yes," Ryan replied gently. "And I want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me." "What about Mom?" Owen asked, clinging to Emily's hand. "Mom will always be your mom," Ryan smiled. "That will never change. We're just adding more love to our family." Emily flipped more pages, showing photos of the twins as babies, their early years, and finally, recent pictures with Ryan. "See how our family keeps growing? And I," Sarah said, stepping closer, "will be so happy to get to know you better, at your own pace. No rush?" The boys processed the information in their own ways. Ethan asked a million questions, while Owen remained quiet and thoughtful. But slowly, the initial tension dissolved. "Can we call you Dad?" Ethan asked Ryan suddenly. "If you want," Ryan answered, voice trembling with emotion. "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable." The following weeks were a time of adjustment. Ryan bought a house only a few blocks from Emily's apartment, designing 2 bedrooms especially for the twins. His schedule, once full of international commitments, was reworked to prioritize his time with them. "We need a routine," Emily suggested during one of their many shared dinners, "something that gives them security." And so a new normal took shape. The twins spent most of their time with Emily, but enjoyed regular dinners with Ryan, alternate weekends, and special moments with Sarah, who found her role as a loving aunt. "It's different from what I imagined," Sarah confided in Emily one day, watching the boys play in Ryan's new backyard. "But in a way, it's perfect like this." Ryan was learning, too. Learning how to be a father, to share responsibilities, to respect the boundaries Emily had set. When Ethan came down with a high fever, Emily showed him how to measure the medicine exactly. When Owen had a nightmare, she taught Ryan how to calm him. "You're an incredible mother," he told her one night after tucking the boys in. "They're so lucky to have you." Emily smiled, watching her children sleep. Now they're lucky in double, maybe triple, counting Sarah. Adaptation wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of confusion, jealousy, and the need for clear boundaries. But each hurdle was met with communication and love. One afternoon, while Ryan took the boys out for a walk, Emily discovered a new drawing by Ethan. This time, the family included everyone: her, Ryan, Sarah, and even Richard, who had become a devoted grandfather. "Our family is different," Owen remarked during dinner one night, "but it's cool like that." "Different like a special puzzle," Ethan added. "Each piece has its place." Emily, Ryan, and Sarah exchanged emotional looks. Somehow, these 4-year-olds understood something many adults never learn: that family isn't defined by set patterns, but by love. As days turned to weeks and weeks to months, a new harmony emerged. Ryan learned to juggle his corporate empire with afternoons at the playground. Emily discovered that sharing motherhood didn't diminish her love. It multiplied it, and Sarah, finally at peace with her past, embraced her role as part of this unique family. The bridges they built weren't just metaphorical. They were formed through shared moments, laughter, and little traditions. Wednesday pizza nights at Ryan's, Sunday picnics with everyone, Richard and Ruth included. "You know," Emily said one evening, watching Ryan read a story to the twins, "I think we've made something truly special." Sarah, who'd spent the afternoon helping the boys with an art project, smiled. "We've built a family, unconventional, complex, but filled with love." And it was true. Amid all the changes, challenges, and adjustments, they had created something precious. A family where each member had a place, a role, a significance. A family proving that when love is genuine, it always finds ways to grow and adapt. Ryan's backyard was decorated for a birthday party. Colorful balloons danced in the soft autumn breeze, and a banner reading, "Happy Birthday, Ethan and Owen, 5 years old," stretched between 2 large trees. It was hard to believe a whole year had passed since that afternoon at the theater that changed their lives forever. Emily was putting the finishing touches on the dessert table when she heard familiar laughter. Ethan and Owen raced through the yard, chased by Ryan, who was pretending to be a dragon, their favorite game lately. "Daddy Dragon can't catch us!" Ethan yelled, hiding behind a tree. "Never," Owen chimed in, ducking behind Sarah, who had just arrived carrying a very elaborate birthday cake. Emily smiled, and recalling how that word, "Daddy," had simply appeared a few months earlier. No one forced it. No one asked for it. One night during story time, it just happened. Pondering the past? Ruth asked, coming over with a tray of snacks. Thinking about how much has changed, Emily said, and how, somehow, it's even better than before. The past year had brought profound transformations for them all. Ryan, once a workaholic, now arranged his schedule around the twins' school performances and playground afternoons. Emily realized that sharing the motherhood role didn't lessen her love. If anything, it grew stronger. And Sarah, at peace with her past choices, remained a steady, loving presence in the boys' lives. "Aunt Sarah," Ethan called, "tell us that story about the dragon with two castles." Sarah grinned, sitting on the grass with them. It was a story she had invented months ago about a dragon who discovered it could be happy living in two homes, a gentle metaphor that helped the twins understand their own situation. Richard Miller arrived shortly after, carrying gifts and sporting that proud grandfather smile he always wore around the twins. "Where are my little adventurers, Grandpa?" the boys shouted, running to greet him, temporarily abandoning Sarah's story. The party soon filled with guests, school friends, family friends, and the people who had been part of this extraordinary journey. Mr. Davis chatted animatedly about how the Miller case had inspired changes in local adoption laws. "Cake time," Emily called, gathering everyone around the main table. As the candles were lit, Ryan stepped up to the microphone they'd set up for birthday speeches. "Before we sing, I'd like to make a special announcement," he said, smiling at Emily and Sarah, who already knew what was coming. "Today, on Ethan and Owen's 5th birthday, I'm thrilled to introduce Project Bridges." A ripple of interest ran through the crowd. This initiative, a partnership between the Miller Family Foundation and Willow Creek, will transform the adoption system in our area. Our goal is to build bridges between children and families, between past and future, between different forms of love. Emily felt tears in her eyes as she listened to Ryan describe how their own story, complex, unique, and filled with love, had shown that a family can thrive outside traditional conventions. "And the first consultants on this project," Ryan continued, beaming, "will be two 5-year-old experts who know more about unconditional love than any adult I've ever met." Ethan and Owen, too excited about the cake to realize their family story was changing the world, simply grinned. To them, having a mom who raised them with love, a dad who chose them with devotion, and a special aunt who loved them from near and far was just normal life. After the birthday song, while children played and adults chatted, Emily found a moment of quiet with Ryan and Sarah. "Who would have guessed," she smiled, "that a rainy morning 4 years ago would bring us here?" "Or that night at the symposium," Sarah added softly. "Or that afternoon at the theater," Ryan finished. "Sometimes I think fate has a quirky sense of humor." A gleeful shout interrupted them. Ethan had climbed a low-hanging tree branch, producing both pride and alarm in his 3 parents. "Ethan Miller Carter!" Emily and Ryan exclaimed simultaneously, rushing to help him down. The sun was setting as the last guests left. The twins, exhausted yet happy, fell asleep on the living room couch, surrounded by torn wrapping paper and cake crumbs. "They look like angels," Sarah commented, helping to clear away cups and plates. "Only when they're sleeping?" Ryan joked, thinking of the tree-climbing adventure. Emily stood watching her children, her heart brimming. Their not-so-typical family, bound by love for 2 extraordinary boys, had found a comfortable rhythm and harmony. "You know," she said, "I think we've created something truly remarkable." "We created a family," Ryan corrected, "unconventional, complex, and ours." "And perfect in its own way," Sarah added. That night, after Sarah left and the twins were tucked into their beds, Emily and Ryan sat on the balcony once more, sharing a glass of wine in the quiet closeness they had grown to cherish. "Project Bridges is going to change a lot of lives," Emily said. "Just like ours was changed," Ryan agreed. "You know what's amazing? Our kids won't find any of this odd. For them, love is love, no matter how it comes. In the twins' bedroom, the soft sounds of their breathing marked the end of a special day. The walls displayed drawings that told the story of a family transcending expectations, choosing love above all else. And so, under Los Angeles' starry sky, an unconventional family celebrated not just a birthday, but the triumph of love over doubt, of compassion over fear, of truth over secrets. It was a story that had begun in the rain, with a chance meeting and two special children, and that would continue to inspire others to believe that family, more than anything, is defined by love.